Hi, I'm Keith,
And I'm Scott.
and this is Instant IT Intel. Scott, obviously, our big story this week is the AWS reInvent 2025. That's their big show that they do every year. Tons of people come out to it. Now, IT Pro had reporters on the ground reporting all the news from Las Vegas. So you've been looking over this information too. What is your big takeaway from the show so far, recognizing that we're fairly far into the event now?
Yeah. Lots of important news out of reInvent, like a big performance boost for S3. But the most interesting thing to me was the impassioned case that AWS CEO Matt Garman made for AI. He's arguing that AI is going to have as profound an effect on global business as the advent of the internet or cloud computing. So, that's a pretty high bar. And there's been a lot of pushback lately with arguments that AI is a bubble. And Garmin acknowledged that sort of elephant in the room or that particular keynote hall by conceding that customers aren't seeing returns yet on their AI investments. And what Garmin is arguing is going to make things different is agentic AI. So he made the case that we're at an inflection point on agents. He predicted that the number of agents at work in companies is about to explode. So with advancements like some of the frontier agents that Amazon launched this week at reInvent, these are agents that are supposed to be able to operate autonomously for hours or days. Garmin is saying that everything will change. We'll see. I mean, there have been a lot of agents that sort of fall over and drop the ball when you ask them to do something, which is the reason I think that AWS needed to work on those issues with the launch of the frontier agents.
Now, I'm a former journalist, maybe still a journalist to a degree, and so are you. So the cynical journalist in me, Scott, wants to push back on a lot of what Garmin said. First point is that we should recognize there's a pretty darn close alignment with AWS and AI. So he is hyping something that his company is primed to make a lot of money from. You just mentioned S3 storage. Well, certainly AWS benefits from having faster storage because there's going to be more AI massaged data, AI created data, AI pushed data in AWS. So that's the first thing we need to remember. He has skin in the game. When you got skin in the game, you got to be very suspicious of what they say. Okay, second up. AI agents will have as much impact on your business as the internet or cloud. My response is, come on, Matt. I mean, really? Okay, you mentioned that he talked about an AI bubble. All right. As they said in the movie The Big Short, as Steve Carell said, the bubble is real. Okay. There is a significant and growing amount of data to show that there is an AI bubble. It doesn't mean AI isn't real, isn't happening, isn't super important, but it is being overhyped. Now, my own personal opinion on this, I think AI is going to become a tool, a very, very important tool, a crucial tool in just about every environment, the same way virtualization was back in the day when VMware came out and essentially created the industry with ESX Server. I think AI is going to be a tool, but it won't be foundational. The cloud, the internet, those are foundational to everything we do in computing in this industry, Scott. And AI simply isn't at that level. In my never humble opinion, AI will find its place. It'll find its level, so to speak, but it is not going to be anywhere near the impact of the cloud or the internet. To me, this is strictly hyperbole. What do you think?
I think my take is probably a little bit more. I don't know if I would call it positive, but I'm a little bit more humble about the abilities of AI. If you would have asked me 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, I guess, if generative AI tools would be as good as they were, I would have said no way. There's not a chance, and it was really surprising. And being in San Francisco, earlier this year, and seeing all the Waymo cars drive around, it's like, oh, this isn't just Elon Musk hyping cars driving themselves and Tesla can't do it. People are actually doing it. These cars are driving around without drivers. So I completely am on board with a lot of your concerns. I'm just a little bit more humble about what's ahead.
Humble is not part of my vocabulary. Okay. Now,
all right, Keith. So I know the story that all this AI talk from AWS relates to a headline that I know you think is significant. Why don't you tell us about that one?
Yeah, Scott. So this was also recently in IT Pro, something for everyone to check out. And it was talking about how US data center power demand is forecast to hit 106 gigawatts or gigawatts. I don't know which one. I mean, Doc Brown, the source for all of this, called it gigawatts. But Doc Brown, Back to the Future. Other people call it gigawatts. I have no idea. Whatever you call it, it's forecast to hit 106 gigawatts by 2035, according to this report. Now, this is a 36% jump from the previous outlook published by Bloomberg just 7 months ago. And it does underscore, according to the story, how quickly the generative AI boom is altering the physical requirements of the technology center. One of the quotes that is crucial in this article, Scott, is this boom in data center demand is colliding with grid realities, and that the power constraints of the power generation, the power needed to run AI is forcing a geographical restructuring of the U.S. internet infrastructure, including in Northern Virginia, long known as the world's data center alley, which the report states is nearing saturation. Now, Scott, both of us live relatively near to Northern Virginia, so we, understand this. Maybe we've been here a long time and have seen some of this growth. I wanted to point out one reason this story mattered to me is I have very personal experience. I live in a county in Maryland that is one, I think, of 5, which is planned to be a transmission sort of superhighway. They're proposing a series of transmission power lines running through Maryland, running through my county, Scott, not just running through my county, running through my neighborhood. These power lines could be hundreds of feet from my house. So this is not just an abstract story. This is not just an abstract, well, AI needs a lot of power. For me, this brings it down to a level where it's very personal. So I, am really scared by what is happening to a degree, although I also understand I love to use ChatGPT for the useful things it can do for me. So I'm sort of torn. How about you?
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to say, they're talking in that story about data center alley kind of being tapped out in terms of capacity. But for what it's worth, you mentioned us being around there. I was just down there visiting family over Thanksgiving. We did a driving tour of the data centers around Sterling, Virginia. There were cranes, heavy machinery, fresh dirt, huge structures everywhere. This build out is in full swing there, even if it's tapped out. And more to the points you were making, though, interspersed among all those huge structures and equally impressive were like really impressive power substations. Several of them within maybe a square mile. You can just physically see how much power these places are going to draw.
And what we're going to see more and more, not just things like transmission lines going through neighborhoods. Obviously, where is the power going to be generated from? Yep. This is going to be a huge issue. Wind and solar, for instance, are good, not nearly enough to power the demands of AI. We don't want nuclear power. That is scary for a very good reason. Again, we live near Pennsylvania, and I am certainly old enough to remember 3 Mile Island, for example. In other words, this story...
You mean the one that they're talking about reopening? The power data centers?
That same one. Exactly. Yeah. China syndrome in my backyard. I'm not looking forward to that. But this is a story that is only going to grow more and more pervasive and more urgent as these AI data centers keep growing and growing, the kind of things you saw, when you were in that area recently. So something to keep an eye on, and we certainly will be watching it. Well, that closes out this particular edition, Scott. Check out these and lots more stories on IT Pro. Until next time, Scotty B. This has been Instant IT Intel.
Thanks, Keith.